Yeah, no, thanks for letting me do this.
Of course. And now it's streaming live. So welcome everybody. Aloha. I'm Annalisa Burgos, and we have another wonderful edition of FYLPRO Fridays. And today we have a wonderful guest with us today, Sergio Alcubilla from our hometown here in Honolulu. Hey, Serge, good to see you.
Hey, Annalisa.
Lots of stuff happening, of course, with Sergio. If you didn't know, he is running for Congress to represent our state here, Hawaii, as well as he's an attorney and doing a lot of workers' rights advocacy. And we'll get into that in a moment. But first, we want to know what's been going on with you, Sergio, because, you know, you were 2019 alumni, FYLPRO, 10-year anniversary, of course, this year. Remind us what's been going on with you.
Yeah, 2019 seemed like it was such a long time ago, but and at the same time, not that long ago. We really had a good experience in the Philippines there with our batch 8. Shout out to batch 8 for all of those that are listening today. Really a great batch, and to my batchmate Lizelle for her presidency and her leadership, and everyone on the board. You all are doing an amazing, incredible job, and thank you really for your service for our Filipino community with FYLPRO. But it's been busy since 2019. Got back from the Philippines, and then of course the next few months the pandemic hit. Got busy staying at home, trying to teach the kids, their schoolwork, and that was an adventure in itself. And then since then I've declared I was running for office, and it's just the past year just been campaigning, and it's been a lot of work, but at the same time, I know that I'm doing it for the community, so it's been fulfilling that way.
Yeah, and I know you've been doing a lot of community advocacy ever since, you're an attorney, so a lot of important work. What's, I guess, been the most important work that you've done over your many years in this career?
Well, I've been with the Legal Aid Society of Hawaii for the last 10 years. I had to step down this past year because of the campaign, but I think one of the things I'm proud of the most, and I'm really grateful to see, is we were able to establish these court self-help centers all across the state. We were able to bring in volunteer attorneys to provide free legal advice and free legal information for the community at the courthouses, and that was something that I was able to be a part of, and helped implement when I was still a law student. And this year we're actually celebrating 10 years of the court self-help centers, and we helped over 50,000 residents come in and get legal help. I think for me, just seeing people from the community that were scared of the legal process or intimidated by the legal process, or they didn't have an attorney, they didn't know where to turn to, and for me to be able to meet with them at these self-help centers and work with them with other volunteer attorneys, and for them to leave kind of that meeting with a sense of confidence that they can do it, just with a sense of appreciation too, that the law doesn't have to be as scary and intimidating as they may feel. I think for me that was very just gratifying, and grateful too when we have people from the community, a lot of our fellow kababayans coming in, and of course they address you as attorney.
Yeah.
That's just I tell
Attorney Sergio or Attorney Serge.
Yeah, and I tell them it's okay. You just call me Sergio, but just for them just to see someone on the other side that understands really where they're coming from and understands the challenges that they face. I think for them, they walk away just feeling like they were heard, and for me that's important. Just making sure that people feel like they're being heard and they're being part of the process.
Yeah, I think especially with our newly arrived immigrants and a lot of the, people who come and don't speak English as their first language, it's really difficult for them to navigate anything right here in the United States, whether it's their immigration papers or their unemployment, as we saw with what happened during the pandemic. And I know you were working a lot with people who were affected during the pandemic when it came to unemployment, right?
Yeah, I'm also a board member with the Hawaii Workers Center, and we advocate for low-wage workers, and a lot of them are recent immigrants, of course, to the United States, and for them to have to navigate the unemployment insurance system, I mean, it was a challenge, and for me, even with all my background and training, I mean, just to try to figure that out was also a challenge. So I could imagine for someone where English isn't their first language. And it takes me back to my own experience, right? As an immigrant to this country where, I walk into my first grade class and I can't speak a word of English. And
How old were you? Six. So that's like what, 6 years old, first
I was,
grade?
I was seven,
Seven. Okay.
seven
Where
already.
was this? In Florida?
This was in Virginia.
In Virginia. Okay. Oh, that's a tough one when it comes
Yeah. Oh
to
my gosh.
diversity.
That was an experience. And I just remember the teacher introducing me, and I didn't know what to say. And people, my classmates just they made fun of my accent and because I couldn't pronounce things correctly. And but I think it motivated me to work hard and to keep trying. And at the same time, it gives me kind of this sense of what other people are going through now, and that's what makes the work so gratifying for me.
Yeah, we did talk with Randy Cortez, who is also a fellow Hawaii alumni from
Right.
FYLPRO, and he
Hey,
talked
Randy.
about being bullied
Wow.
when he was, when he had moved here and had the accent and being bullied in Hawaii.
Wow.
So to me, I thought that was eye-opening because not just in the mainland where, Filipinos are so rare. Well, back then maybe. Now it's not as seldom to see a Filipino, but yeah, I was shocked that even here we hear about bullying in our schools, and so just because of that accent, the difference in assimilating. I just thought that was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I saw that. Shout out to Randy.
Yes, we have a strong Hawaii alumni group, and that's really great because I get to meet amazing people in different fields like yourself, doing amazing work, like advocating for the everyman. And I think that's been, your message, at least during your campaigning. So how did you end up deciding to go into politics? Because that's a whole different beast, right? You're doing all this work with the community, and then all of a sudden you're getting into this rat race with everyone else. What's your observation? Why did you do that?
I really love just the grassroots work, being in the community and providing the direct services to people, because you can see how your help makes a difference to that person, right? But I think the frustration for me, and I really experienced this during the pandemic when we were advocating for unemployment insurance for people, and then just this sense that there's thousands of people here that are unemployed, there's thousands of people here that are struggling to get through the unemployment insurance system, and they're not sure if they're going to make it for the month. And just this sense of people just really weren't listening. And then someone had asked me, why don't you think of running for office? People I think in the past had asked me about that, and that was just something really I didn't really think of. But I think just this sense of what can I do from the grassroots level, and those at the top, and just connect that. And I think that's really where change can happen. But I have to go back to, I think, my experience with FYLPRO when I was in the Philippines in 2019, and we just had a chance to visit some of these communities in the Philippines. And for me, it was just an eye-opener in terms of just understanding kind of the responsibility that we have as Filipino Americans here in this country. We're privileged with education, we're privileged with opportunity, right? And that kind of it hit me during that time that you're here in the United States, you've got all this opportunity ahead of you. Take advantage of it and do whatever you can to represent your culture and your people well in the Philippines, because a lot of people in the Philippines may not have that same opportunity, right? Just because of the circumstances there. And it really hit me. And I think it was just a sense of responsibility, just seeing so many Filipino Americans here that were struggling through the unemployment system. And I think with that, it gave me the courage to put my name out there and to take that step forward. I think that's something that maybe I didn't have before, but just kind of seeing that sense of suffering, I think it gave me the courage that I needed to put myself out there. And I hope that's how change can happen. We take that grassroots experience, and we bring that the decision making at the top and bring it together. And I think as elected officials, that's our responsibility, is to make sure that we're just not providing band-aids for the community, but actually creating change so that people are actually being helped.
Yeah, and courage, definitely. It takes a lot of that. And I think you've probably heard that a lot, right? It's putting yourself out there, especially when you're going up against an incumbent,
Yeah.
right? That is well known, has a lot of resources, has connections. It's really hard when you are a relatively no-name candidate. But
Yeah.
I know you have your own connections within the community. How do you think we can use that? When I say we, the Filipino community, how do you think we can use and leverage that to put more representation into public office? Because considering our numbers as a population in the United States, we don't have very good representation.
Yeah, if we think about it, right, we're 4 million strong nationally. We're 25% of Hawaii's population, right? But currently in Congress right now, I can't think. I think there might be one person that has Filipino, one congressman that has Filipino descent. But why are we not being represented at the national level? There's decisions about us that are being made every day. We need to have a say in the process. And really, my message is, politics just doesn't have to belong to the rich and powerful. It belongs to all of us. It's really our responsibility, and the everyday person to the ordinary person, people like you and me. I think of the Philippines, right? The people that are running for office, they're usually dynasties. They're usually people with, millions of dollars,
Speaking
or
of which,
millions of pesos, right?
there's an election happening now, of
Yeah,
course.
that's right. But if you think about it, right? I mean, the barrier to entry in the Philippines, someone like me would probably have no chance running for office there. But here in the U.S., it's really that land of opportunity where we can just say, you know what, everyday people like you and me, we need to be part of the process. Um, but I think it goes back to even though myself and the incumbent, we're both attorneys, we represent just different sides. I think his kind of the corporate background versus kind of the people background, and for me, I'll stand with the people every day.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a challenge to get people engaged. I don't know what your observation has been, but there are people who are engaged and are in the thick of it, advocating, working, and trying to raise awareness, especially like, for example, in state legislatures, we see people working toward bills and measures. But then there's a large population that doesn't know what's happening civically. Right? How do we get people more involved? And I think that's probably a big part of people not voting, people not knowing the issues. They just don't seem, they're working, they're trying to make a living. How do you get people more engaged?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's a sense of civic responsibility. I think it's really as Filipino Americans, we do have a responsibility to be part of this community, to be part of this society, and that involves in politics as well, right? So we just can't let these decisions being made, about the community without our input. And I'm really hoping on the next generation, you know, that we can have them start thinking already that, hey, you know what, I can run for office too. That, hey, you know what, I need my voice to be heard, on this bill or on this community issue. Otherwise, things are just going to happen without our input, and it'll impact our community. And we had our chance, but we didn't say it. We've got to speak up, and I think that's what I'm really hoping, that through FYLPRO and just through our younger community, that it's okay for us to speak up. It's okay for us to be seen. It's okay for us to be heard. And I think I'm part of that 1.5 generation where the focus was just for us just to put our heads down, learn English, and work hard and be successful. But I hope the conversation is changing, that for us to be successful means we also need to be represented politically, and we also need to be represented in all these places where decisions are being made, whether at the corporate level and in the boardroom, or whether that's in our state legislatures.
Yeah, and you just reminded me about something also. Do you know Stephen Raga, another alum?
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I was inspired by his run in New York.
Yeah, and so he's running again.
Great, yeah.
For an assembly role, so same. And he told me during our FYLPRO Friday session that the challenge there is getting people to vote during the primary, right? They can't seem to get beyond, because the Democratic, it's a blue state also, so it's hard for them to get people to vote in the primary. And that's where the candidates like himself, who are not as well known, don't get the support they can to advance. Right. So, and this is a similar situation with yours for the primaries. You have to face off with a Democratic candidate. But I don't know if you know if you have opponents at this point in the primary?
Right now, it's just myself and the incumbent, but it is a reminder for our community that the primary is August 13th. And I know there's this sense that, oh, the election is not until November, but I know here in Hawaii, it's really the primary that decides.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting for New York that he couldn't get, the challenge was people to get involved that early on that level, especially, it's so competitive also in New York, right? So, but here Hawaii has been a precedent. We've had a history of electing firsts, like Governor Ben Cayetano, right? First Filipino and only so far governor in the country. So if any place could do it and make history, likely Hawaii would be it, just because of our large population. So
yeah, and the history here of Filipinos in Hawaii. I mean, it's a long history, and just with 25% of the population, we've got a chance, to make history, and we have a chance that out of our 4 delegation to Congress, that one, at least 25% of our delegation, at least one comes from the Filipino American community.
Yeah, exactly. But other than that, you've been working hard on the campaign. You've been doing your work. I mean, obviously you're a family man also. How do you balance all of this, right? I mean, we talk about work-life balance, especially with mental health awareness. May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month,
right?
In addition to being Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. All right. So I guess what would be your advice how do you de-stress or deal with all of the craziness of life?
First, I do have to say, for Mental Health Awareness Month coming up in May, that it's important for our community to take mental health very seriously. I think we've been raised to grow up just to think like we just suck it up and just keep plowing through. But I'm glad the narrative in the story and that is changing. But for myself, I have 2 kids. Sergio the fourth is turning 8 or just turned 8 on Wednesday, and we're throwing
a happy birthday.
That's right. And my daughter Aina is 10. But I know the challenge is there. They see me leaving early in the morning or coming home late because of the campaign. But I think what's for me, what makes it all worth it is just letting them see. I take my daughter with me door to door. I take her with me sign waving, and I give her an opportunity to talk to people, and just kind of seeing that type of engagement at such a young age. I hope that they can see that and just realize, we can really help people, or I'm in a position to be able to help other people. And I hope they take that with them, that sense of that value with them. But, I think for me, decompressing, I love to play sports and love to play basketball. So whenever I get a chance, I tell my wife, I just need a little bit of time. Let me just go play basketball a little bit and I'll feel better.
Blow off some steam. Just blow off some steam on the court.
Yeah, so I need that. That's probably the way I decompress the best. And yeah.
Yeah, well, and it helps because I know you also have your wife, like you said, and your mom who are there to support, and it's a family, and your whole family actually, I think, just is it takes a village, as they say, right? You have a lot of support to embark on this journey, regardless of how it turns out. I'm sure there's so many things that you're learning as you go.
Yeah, I'm just very fortunate for all their help and support. My mom, we just finished sign waving this morning, and she was up at 6 a.m, even before that, and she's ready to go.
That's great.
Just that sense of support. It's incredible, and all her friends and family all across the country and here in Hawaii. Just thank you so much for all the help.
No, I know your mom, so that's why I like it, because I think you can other people can relate with when it comes to moms, right? They're always supportive. They have their criticisms, of course, loving criticisms.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are there for you unconditionally. And I know you've said many times when you talk to people and share your story that you were really motivated by her sacrifice as an immigrant, as someone who was, struggling to attain the dream that so many immigrants have.
Yeah, this Mother's Day is coming up, and I just shout out to all the moms. But really, for my mom, yeah, I've shared this story a few times when when my dad was gunned down in the Philippines. Right, my mom was 5 months pregnant with my youngest brother. She already had 5 young kids, and then now she was also pregnant. But here she was as a widow, trying to figure out what to do. And she took me with her here to the United States, and she worked hard as a nurse, and it was really a struggle for her. And that's how I ended up in Virginia. She sent me to go live with my aunt, just because I think it was so hard for her just to watch me while she was working at the same time. And and I can just imagine her giving birth by herself, and just trying to figure out what she's going to do next. But eventually, she brought the rest of my siblings to the United States, and as a single parent with 6 kids, she was able to do it. We had a lot of fun growing up. I can't imagine doing it now with my 2 kids.
I know. And we complain. I have 2 kids too, and
Yeah.
we're always complaining like, gosh, it's so hard. But like, how was it with our parents, right? It's just like, I was raised by a single mom also.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh my goodness. And luckily for my mom, I was one. But for you, you guys were 5, right? Yeah. So that's, kudos. That takes a very, very strong person for sure. And that's what we want to celebrate. Yeah, Mother's Day is coming. And I think overall we talk about wanting to give homage, or what's the phrase? Just really honoring the sacrifices that our ancestors, our parents have done and paved the way for a lot of us. I also talked briefly with another FYLPRO alum. His name escapes me right now, but we were talking about how his app, it's Zagala, Kevin. Yes.
Also my batchmate and my roommate.
Is he your batchmate? Yeah, we had a great discussion also about how much we want to give back to our parents and what they've done for us. And this app that he does in the Bay Area for carpooling was inspired by his dad. Yes. And I know our session, I don't know, did you get to see it? Was an emotional one.
Yeah, Kevin's such a great guy, and his heart is really in the right place. And really good stories together with Kevin. Shout out, Kevin.
Yay. Yeah, no. So I again, it resonates with so many of us, with us trying to, forge our own path, but at the same time, look back and just remember, that others had paved the way for us.
And I think that's what gives me also just just strength and energy to keep going with this campaign, because I think we owe it to those that came before us, right? Our ancestors, the manongs and the manangs that toiled in the fields, our parents that were working 2 or 3 jobs for us to be in this position where we are today, right? So it's really, we owe it to them to be the best version that we can be in whatever field that we're in. And that's really my hope for our community.
Yeah. And I know you used to be a board member also, part of our organization, FYLPRO. What are you excited about? What do you think we can be doing as we look to another 10 years ahead, right? We're celebrating 10 years. We're going to be looking forward to the future and just kind of pivoting. We did pivot because of COVID, not being able to go and be immersed as we did before. Hopefully next year that'll be back, if all things go well. We definitely want to continue our mission. What do you hope to see for the organization, since it was so impactful for you?
Yeah, I love seeing, for one, just the next generation stepping up, right? It's Filipino Young Leaders Program, and a lot of us are starting to age out. So I'm glad to see really the next generation stepping up and us welcoming them in and providing mentorship to them. I think that's important. And just second, just opening it up to other people. I think that's incredible that now you don't have to be someone that participated in the immersion program, but really FYLPRO, the Filipino Young Leaders Program, it's just become this wider net of bringing in our, leaders in our community that are stepping up and, doing whatever we can in our respective fields to represent our culture well. So for me, that's very exciting. And just, I can't believe it's been 10 years already, but I'm excited for the next 10 years and really the next generation that's stepping up. And like for me, whatever I can do to provide mentorship and just to encourage really the next generation as well. That's what I'd like to be able to see.
Yeah, and we do have a bunch of initiatives that we're working on, and you can look on our website for sure. But I know a big thing is we're trying to get more data on our community that's supposed to help in terms of our resources. And you of all people also know the lack of resources that are afforded to our community for whatever reason. Maybe are we not loud enough? Are we not counted? Are we not? I mean, what do you think are some of the big challenges with us trying to get those resources that we need?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to visibility, right? I think this sense of model minority. I think that's what we were kind of raised to think that if we just stay quiet and keep our head down and just work hard. But again, I think if you're not seen or you're not heard, you're not going to get any of these resources. And it's important for us to speak up and just say, "Hey, we need these things," and it's important for us to say that we do need these resources for the community. Otherwise, we will miss out. If we're not at the table making these decisions or providing input on these decisions, then no one's ever going to know. And I think that's the thing. If we don't say something, no one's ever going to know.
Yeah, I think part of it too, I don't know if you experienced this as well, but a lot of people are hiya, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about that. They need help. There's a lot of pride in our culture that we can do it ourselves. We're strong enough. We don't need help. That's for people that are weak, right? So
Yeah.
how do we get over that? Like, what do you tell people in terms of trying to get over the shame, stigma of it all?
Yeah, no, I've thought about that for, I was wondering why that is, but I think I've come to realize that asking for help is actually a sign of strength. Especially as we approach Mental Health Awareness Month, that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but it's really a sign of strength because you're saying that, you can't do this without other people, right? You can't do this without bringing in or without being more inclusive. Right. And I think it takes a stronger person to be able to say that than for someone just to bunker down and try to get through things on their own. Because yeah, I've been there too. I think sometimes I just feel like, I can do this. I don't need any help. Right. It's, a sense of shame, right, if you ask for help. But it really isn't. I've come to realize that it's not. Whatever it is that you may need help with, it's it's opportunity for people to be part of the solutions. And I think just asking for help is something that as a community we need to realize that it's really not. There's no shame in it, or there's no hiya in it, right?
Mm.
It's something that that makes us stronger as a community.
Yeah. And when you were talking, it also made me think people don't want to be a burden. Also, maybe that's something that we've been instilled with the value of, don't bother such and such if you can do it yourself, because and I think that's probably what made us
Yeah.
great, independent, resourceful people. But at the same times, the negative is, yeah, we don't stop to focus on our own self-care.
Yeah. And I think this campaign has also taught me that, right? Because I've had to ask people for help. I've had to make those phone calls asking people, hey, if you really want to change things, I need your help. And I've come to realize that people actually appreciate it, that now that they felt honored that you were able to come up to them and ask for help. And, they're happy to be part of the solution again. But, and I think we've got to take that sense of like, oh, I don't want to be a burden away from our mentality. I think there's some good points in it, but I think at the same time, I think it is a disservice to other people that want to help. It is a disservice to people that want to be part of something bigger than themselves, right? And for you to be able to ask for help, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. And well, we have a minute left. I wanted to give you a chance to plug, tell people how they can donate, help, support the campaign. I'm sure there's a lot of people that share your mission and what you're trying to do. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah, Annalisa, again, thank you just for this time. You're one of our, great reporters here in the community, and it's just really an honor just to spend this time with you. But I would like to ask for people that are watching or people online, check out my website. It's Sergio4Hawaii.com. If you really want to see things change, if you really want to make sure that our government and our politics and our democracy belongs to everyday people like you and me, I'm going to ask for your help. I do need for your help. I can't do this on my own. Please tell a friend. If you're able to donate, whatever you can afford, help with the campaign that way. Or if you can help spread the word, it goes a long way towards letting people know that, politics, again, doesn't have to belong to the rich and to the powerful. It belongs to people like you and me. And for, our next generation, or for people that are watching now, if you think, you're qualified, if you think you've got, something to contribute, put your name out there, take that step forward, because it is a sense of civic responsibility, to be part of our government, to be part of our democracy. Because if you don't do it, if you don't speak up, someone else will. Someone else will take your space. Someone else will take your place. So, be that person, that can advocate for your community and advocate for a better future for all of us.
Perfect. And I think for anyone watching out there, feel free to contact Sergio. He's always willing and able. And, that's what I've admired about you, is just your humility in being able to, connect with people. And so I wish you the best of luck. It's going to be be a tough ride for until August, I guess, August 13th, you said.
Yes.
But I know, at least for us here at FYLPRO, we are rooting for you 100%. And you put it out into the universe. Let's see if it can bring it back for you. So
Thank you.
all right, guys, thank you so much. And I appreciate all of you guys tuning into FYLPRO Fridays. We'll be back next week. Aloha. Thanks, Serge.
Such a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.